This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time. The following Care Lab podcast does not provide health or medical advice. All content is provided for information purposes only. Listeners are encouraged to speak with their healthcare provider for specific healthcare advice and are wholly responsible for the outcome of implementing any tips or information presented.
Hey everyone, welcome to Care Lab.
Care Lab time, I love it.
I love it, yay! This is always one of the most fun parts of my days when we get to just like sit around and talk about Care Lab issues, check in with each other. How's everyone doing? We have a very special guest with us here today, Chris.
We do.
I'm a guest on a podcast. Oh my gosh!
Never done that before.
Well, I'm going to follow your lead. So this is great to be on your new show. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. So we'll listen. So here's the deal, Chris. We'll actually introduce you and stuff in a little bit and tell people why you're important and why you're here.
I'm in comfortable company. You know, I have 4 sisters, so I was trained well. I'll follow instructions.
Okay, great. But first, we're gonna chat about the really important stuff. I have a very, very, very important question for both of you. Are you ready?
I'm not ready.
Okay.
But I'll do it anyway.
Well, buckle up, Buttercup. Are you dogs or cats? Are you a dog person? Or okay. All right. Chris?
Chia pet.
I was not expecting that answer.
No, not at all. Okay, why?
I don't want to take care of any more heartbeats.
That's fair. I don't really want to care for anything else. My sister-in-law has 4 kids, 2 dogs, and they just got a hamster. And I'm like, dude,
That's
I
a
can't.
lot.
That's a lot.
Listen, I have 3 kids and a dog and some fish, which we can hardly keep the fish alive. Yet the kids keep asking for more pets. I'm like, I can't take care of no more things. I'm barely taking care of these things here. Mm-hmm. You included, kid.
Oh, the fish, though. They're so calming. I had an aquarium when I was a kid, and I love sitting at the edge of my bed and watching the fish just kind of swim around freely. But then they started jumping out of the aquarium.
Okay, that's the story. That's the story I was going to tell. We had fish for like a hot second when I was a really little kid. I think I was probably maybe like 3 or 4. But I remember these fish. But they kept jumping out of the bowl in the middle of the night. And somehow I think my dad heard them the first couple nights. I'm like, went and scooped. I know. Who is this? Who is this person? My dad can apparently hear anything. Actually, my dad definitely, he's pretty deaf now. He needs hearing aids. Because all the fish jumping.
The fish whisperer.
Yeah. But he would go scoop them up and put them back in the bowl. This is my 3 or 4-year-old memory, so it may or may not be accurate. But then one night either he didn't hear it or he was like, these fish, they have chosen their fate. So we had fish for about 5 days. That's my fish experience.
I'm going to give you a quick tip.
Okay.
Never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Fair.
So, Brandy, why dogs? Why are you a dog person?
So dogs are active and they can do stuff. They like your attention and they want to be around. And I think dogs are fun. Cats, on the other hand, are sheddy all the time. I'm allergic to their hair. I'm actually allergic to dog hair too, but cats shed so much more hair, it makes way bigger difference. And they don't want to be around, and I don't like stuff sneaking up on me. I hear lots of little sounds, and I'm always at alert. And if it's a cat, just prowling through my house. I just don't like it. Don't like it.
They do. They are kind of attacky. So I used to be 100% team dog, but my kids always wanted a cat. So a couple years ago, we like surprised them for Christmas and we got a kitten. And you know what? I love this cat. He's so great. He is everything that like you say cats are. Like he is, although he's very sweet. He doesn't always want to be with you, but when he wants to be with people, like he really wants to be with people, and he's not mean to any people.
Okay.
He is mean to other cats. He doesn't like other cats. But like oh my gosh. So he's indoor outdoor. For all the cat people out there, please don't judge me for having an indoor outdoor cat. Listen, we're all doing the best we can. He's indoor outdoor. People have strong feelings about this. I found out after we got a cat. Very strong feelings.
I mean, you did say that y'all leave stuff outside, and apparently it includes your cat.
That's true. I did say that on a previous episode that we have a tendency to leave things outside that are not meant to be outside. Well, the cat chooses to be outside. We actually try to keep him in, but he can't be contained. But he's not a big cat, but he is scrappy, and he will chase other cats down the street. I heard him once chase a cat down the street yowling like a siren. And it had like full Doppler effect on it. It was like, but like that you could just hear him going down the street. And then he like came back. He was real upset about the whole incident later. But anyway, yeah, no, cats are just bizarre. I never had one, so I think that's why I'm so fascinated. No, that's why I'm fascinated by him, is because he's just such a weird creature, but also very snuggly and pleasant when he wants to be. But he does attack you. He'll hide in a corner like a ninja, and then all of a sudden he'll just come flying across the room and like get you. But he doesn't scratch or anything like that.
There are some funny cat videos on Instagram if you haven't seen them.
I bet.
Like the one cat sitting the cat sitting on the couch, on top of the couch, and watching TV, and there's a bunch of birds running around a lake, and then there's a cat. There's a cat on this TV screen running after the birds, and then the cat that's sitting on the couch jumps up like they're going to go into the TV and falls down. The cats are entertaining when they're somebody else's.
They're really they're so entertaining. I don't know. So this is another debate. We could have it another time if cats or dogs are smarter. I'm pretty firmly on team dog for which is smarter, but I also think it's like just a type of intelligence too. Like cats are so incredibly like kinesthetically intelligent, just the way they move their bodies, and they're just incredible hunters. And I mean, that's a kind of intelligence, right? But like not necessarily good learners. I found like there's a reason you can't train a cat. Yeah,
they're that's really that's right. They are instinctual.
Yeah. You can teach a dog. You can't really. Cat's gonna do what the cat's gonna do.
Exactly. And I wish a cat would jump across the room and get me, because he'll get punched in the face in the air on the way. Just reaction. That's just what would happen. I'm just saying.
Then the cat might learn. Then the cat might learn. The cat
gonna learn that they shouldn't be at my house. That's what they learn.
Dr. Seuss might have a story somewhere there for you. The Cat in the Hat. So.
Right? Yeah. Well, that cat was very persistent. He didn't learn either.
See?
There we go.
Okay, should we hashtag CareLab something though?
Let's CareLab something.
Let's CareLab something. Okay, so let me introduce Chris a little bit now and tell everyone why he's such a wonderful, fabulous, special guest today. So Christopher MacLellan is the founder of Whole Care Network, which is a pretty amazing site. Started as and Chris, you can just jump in and take over here if you want to, but I'm so proud to, one, be your friend, and two, to work with you on things with Whole Care Network University, but also to, have you here on the podcast today because you're such a wealth of information and knowledge and experience. Whole Care Network, which, by the way, if you're listening to Care Lab, you probably know that we are hosted through Whole Care Network. So if you haven't checked out any of the other podcasts there, you definitely should go. There are how many podcasts? I mean...
Well, there's over 70 podcasts. There's, I think, about 10 that are currently active. But the one of the great things about podcasts is that they live on, and that information is always available. In fact, my Healing Ties podcast, which I have not, I have not produced a Healing Ties podcast in maybe 2-3 years now. Still gets about 1,000 downloads a month because it's readily available, and the topics, especially when we're talking about care and senior care, those topics are always relevant. But I just think podcasting is really the best mechanism to share information and referral, because it all comes from our heart and our voice, and we tell our story why, and makes people feel comfortable with what we're trying to do.
And of course, Chris, you kind of got into this because you have your own caregiving story, which I'll let you share, in whatever level you feel like sharing it right now. And then we'll kind of get into the topic at hand that I wanted to go over with you here today.
I'm always happy to share our caregiving story. And I'm a firm believer now, after, goodness, it'll be 10 years since Richard made his life transition next Saturday, which would have been March 9th. But I'm a firm believer, and people have heard me say this before, it's through story sharing where diversity meets the road to collaborate on a common cause. And our common cause is to support family caregivers in all facets. Our story, we were fortunate. We had our story told in a 2014 Pulitzer Prize nominated caregiving story, In Sickness and Health, A Couple's Final Journey. The story is 10 years old, still available online. It's been read over 500,000 times since it was first published. And the thing about our story is that people could put themselves in our shoes. They could understand the trials and tribulations of dealing with the medical system, dealing with social workers, dealing with clergy, dealing with all these different disciplines that come up in the midst of caregiving that in most cases people aren't used to dealing with. And what happens when you're in an emotional setting, you kind of tend to make poor decisions in the midst of an emotional decision when you're trying to access all this new information. It just happened to be an afterthought that the story was about two men. And that was, as I reflect back on all the wonderful comments, and I still get comments today about the stories, it reminds me about the welcome, the wholeness that people have when it's centered, especially when we center it around care. Because there really is no social issue out there like caregiving that brings a group of diverse people and families together. There's no boundaries when it comes to caregiving. It's, you're black, white, yellow, gray, gay, straight, Muslim, Christian, Jewish. Everybody is impacted by caregiving. And it's through these stories that we share with one another that we get to learn that, we're not really that much different with each other. We all want to experience three things: love, care, and commitment. And we all experience those in different ways through different, our culture, but it really is the same language, because caregivers need three things: validation, resources, and respite. And what better way to get those three very critical areas than from one caregiver to another.
And so and you highlighted there that so much of the caregiving experience is universal. It's something that can be shared and understood across kind of all boundaries. But your experience being a part of a same-sex couple during the caregiving experience probably did have some additional challenges that went along with that. Can you talk a little bit about what that was like and how that impacted your experience? Hey there, it's Emilia. Listen, I am so thrilled to have a great resource like Ask Sammy as part of the Care Lab team, and here's why. It's a game changer for aging in place because it makes it so simple. All you do is ask. Just type in your question or even tell Sammy what the problem is and get tailored solutions. Everything from innovative adaptive equipment to comprehensive resources. It's a great way to become more empowered, to live more independently, and to live with greater confidence. And my favorite thing about how Ask Sammy works is it's deeply rooted in dignity and practicality. So whether you're a fellow therapist, a care partner, or someone who's seeking solutions for themselves, visit www.asksammy.com. We're going to link it in the show notes so you can find it there. Start making home more accessible today. Now, back to the show.
Well, and again, this is another area that I really enjoy talking about because I don't want your viewers and your listeners to think that I'm all Pollyanna and that I'm naive and not think that everybody is welcoming. We did have a couple of instances where we were discriminated in healthcare settings, and I think that the difference for that, and now looking back in the experience, is that you're never going to eliminate somebody's personal bigotry. It's just that's something that's really never going to happen. But there is a time and a place to debate that or call that all that on the carpet. When you're in the midst of care, you want to make sure that your care, and I'm going to use the generic term, your care partner is being well taken care of. And for us, some of the things that I put in place was I carried a green folder with me wherever I went. So if there was ever I was going to use a bad word, but if there was ever a problem,
I've been a bad influence on you, Chris.
But if there was ever a negative experience or a conflict with a healthcare provider, I just got in my green folder and pulled out my healthcare proxy power of attorney. I had all the legal documents in place, and that's that's one of the differences for same-sex couples. And now you could say, well, what about marriage equality? Well, that's marriage equality does level the playing field in some sorts, but in our experience, marriage equality was not law of the land. But still, even with it being law of the land, there's a chance that you might run into somebody that may not want to be on your care team. And I would rather know that up front than in the midst of an emergency trying to ascertain, well, is this person going to, are they going to be professional and they're going to be there at this critical time? You really don't know. That's why and you can't really prepare for an emergency. But if you have some of these things in place, like your advance directives, your powers of attorney, these things that some people just take for granted, but the funny thing about it, those rules apply for any unmarried couple. They actually
can apply for married couples too. I mean, I have to have you still have to have those documents in order, right? Yeah.
Well, I think of it if you're sending a kid off to college and that kid is 18, 19. If you don't have those, who is the who is the power of attorney, who can speak on this person's behalf. It's a part of these conversations that are uncomfortable for some people to have, but it's very necessary, especially when an emergency arises. And for us, I had tried to establish, I did establish a really good rapport with everybody on our medical care team, because the caregiver is the CEO of the care team, the chief everything officer. And if a physician or a nurse assistant, or I'm sure occupational therapist would never do this, but if they're not asking questions about to the caregiver about your care partner, then they may not be somebody you want on their care team, and it's okay. It's okay to move on to somebody else. I fired a hospice, so it's like you are the CEO, and you have to develop those strong relationships with your care team. And if you're not comfortable with one of them, or if they're not comfortable with you, it's better to move on before there's a problem.
I think that's such a good point that you bring up, because I feel like I encounter people who don't feel empowered to be in charge of their care or somebody else's care and defer everything to healthcare professionals. And while I appreciate people listening to what I have to say because I'm a healthcare professional, at the end of the day, I don't live there with you. I'm not the person who's sick or hurting, and I'm not the person caring for them. I'm trying to support you in doing that. And so if you don't feel supported or not getting information in a way that works well for you, or there's not a back and forth or whatever, there are many professionals everywhere you are at, and it's okay to find somebody who's going to listen to you, because that's super important. Because if we healthcare providers don't listen, so many things can be missed and be wrong.
I'm a product of the 60s, as you probably can see. I went to Catholic grade school, and my upbringing always told me, and I think this was similar for a lot of folks that are in my age and a little bit older and maybe a little bit younger, that authority was always right. You never questioned authority. It's like, well, why would I question that 300-pound nun with a yardstick in her hand? I wasn't going to question her. But we come from that mindset that if authority is all knowing and all seeing, and we're supposed to take everything what they say with 100% assurance. Well, as you get older, you find out that really wasn't the case. But you still have that respect for authority in one sense, but the authority, especially on the care side, the medical team, it's an equal partnership. They can't do their job unless they're asking questions. And I had a doctor tell me one time, she said, the best patients are the ones that ask questions. And that's the patients that I want to have. And I kind of take this a step farther with folks, especially that are right into getting into caregiving, because it happens for one or two reasons. It's an unfortunate accident or an untimely diagnosis, and you're suddenly thrust into this. But you have to feel comfortable in asking the questions, and even if you can't pronounce all those big words, or if you can't pronounce the names of the prescription, demonstrate to the healthcare provider that you're trying and that you're learning, and you're not afraid to talk to them.
Yep. So I have a question for you. So the
Sure.
The green folder with all the documents.
Yeah.
When did you put that in place? Did you have that from the beginning of time of y'all together? And look at you with it.
I have my green. This is my advanced directives. My advanced directives are right here on my green folder. My roommate advanced directives is here. I started putting those together from day one. When the the night that we went, oh my goodness. The night that we went to the emergency room for the first time, it's like they're asking me all these questions. They want to, what's the insurance, all these things. It's like, I need to have something. I need to have this better organized. And for me, it just kind of made sense with putting it all in a green folder. I'm surprised it wasn't purple because that's my favorite color, but it just, maybe that's what was handed. But that was something immediate early on. And that was because also that first trip to the hospital was where we felt that tinge of discrimination when the emergency room physicians walked into to speak to Richard, and I'm sitting right next to him, and they're peppering him with questions like blah, 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 blah. And it's like, and I just said, I might be able to help you. And they just looked at me and said, well, who are you? And then the next day,
the assumption that you weren't the partner. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. And the next day when we went down to nuclear medicine, and the tech asked me, well, who are you and why are you here? And any gay person knows what that means. And I'm projecting here, but I'm pretty safe in saying this. If that was a woman sitting in that chair next to Richard, they would have said, oh, you must be the wife.
Oh, that's really interesting. So the way, and this is, I don't know if this is a function of how I was trained or it even being a few years later, or just, I don't know. But if I go into a room and there's someone there with the patient, I always ask what's the nature of your relationship to the folks who are, to this wonderful gentleman or this lovely lady or whoever's in here. And that's just my standard question, no matter who is there, because I have learned that the person that you think is the daughter could be the wife. The person that it's just not safe to ever have assumptions about the nature of other people's relationships. It could be not someone that they're close to at all. It could be someone who's just visiting, that's from out of town, and you don't have the right to share their medical information. So the questions I always ask are, can I just confirm what's the nature of your relationship to each other? And then, is it okay if we talk about your healthcare information in front of this person? Yeah. And so, but I wonder now if, when I have asked that question, if maybe that's been received in a way, I'm a little bit worried that maybe that's been received in a way that was maybe not, felt like not friendly. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I would think it would be in how you would say it, not what you've said. And you can always say, I'm here to help you. There's some things I need to understand there's a lot of ways of presenting it. And I know for sure that the doctors that presented themselves to me that day, I know for sure that because we had an opportunity. I don't know if I've ever shared this with you. I had an opportunity to present to the whole management team at the hospital.
Oh, wow.
About this experience. And the hospital went through a whole certification process, a sensitivity certification process. So those are the outcomes of being proactive. I could have went off the rails, and I think we've all seen people go off the rails at the most inappropriate time.
Care Lab listeners, it's Brandy, and as the founder of a platform made to make aging in place easier for everyone, I knew it would be incomplete if we did not have education, especially for caregivers. So whether you're a family caregiver or somebody who trains a whole organization, Higher Standards caregiver training videos are for you. I'm so proud that we were able to partner together with Emilia in order to provide these to you because they're easy for everybody. You get great occupational therapist-led training on topics like transfers and how to care for someone as they age, or maybe as things change when you have Parkinson's. So no matter if you're the loved one who doesn't know exactly what to do next because things are getting different, or if you're a professional who trains caregivers that go into the community and you need some quality education, you get both from Higher Standards Caregiver Training. And you need to check them out at higherstandardscaregivertraining.com.
I remember I was there as Richard's advocate, and I could take care of the seemingly discrimination conversation later, but I wanted to be sure that he was taken care of. And I think sometimes we lose that in the emotion of a diagnosis, in an emergency room or in a doctor's office. There's a time and place to advocate for your patient, your care partner, and then there's a time and place to advocate for what's the right for proper addressing a patient and their care partner.
Because kind of essentially what you're saying is, while it's kind of a slight to Richard, it was more of an offense to you, and that you were instead of getting as upset as you could have in the moment, you were more concerned about making sure that he got the care that he needed. Is that a fair statement?
That's exactly, you're right on spot, because that was total focus, making sure that he got the care that he needed. Because it was, he was the one, and this is the other thing that we learn in the midst of caregiving, is the caregiver is the co-pilot. We're not taking the medicine, we're not doing the radiation, we're not this is their life, and you're there as their voice and as their advocate. And I have to tell you, I didn't fully really understand this concept until I needed a caregiver a couple of years ago when I had a heart procedure. I kept thinking about, I had all this wonderful advice for Richard, and why wouldn't he just kind of take it? Like, why would I come home from work and the step ladder would be out in the kitchen? It's like, you're not supposed to get up on the ladder. Well, when you're dealing with mortality, you really can't get in touch with that until you're dealing with it yourself. Then you understand how hard it is to ask for help for such mundane things like getting a tea bag out of the cabinet, or walking down the hallway to go to the bathroom, opening a can of soup. You don't really get in touch with how that impacts you until you have to go through it yourself. And I think that's a conversation in caregiving that a lot of us need to have, especially from my era, that because everybody's going to need a caregiver. What is the emotional component of recognizing that you're losing some of those abilities to do some everyday tasks that you've done your entire life, like toileting? I mean, you're
a little personal.
Occupational therapist, you get it. You can't get any more personal than toileting. But
it's such a difference between like being the person who might need the help and the person who's willing. Because I've met so many very willing caregivers who are like, well, they don't need help with their stuff. They need help with their stuff. I can just do it. It's no problem. I really don't have a problem with doing it. And it's not that people are not willing. It's that the person might want to just do that thing themselves or do anything themselves, even if you're totally capable and willing to help. And so understand. I like the statement of understand that you are the co-pilot, and sometimes you don't always recognize that until you're in the pilot seat.
When I needed help in and out of the bed, out of the chair, into the shower, when I was putting my advanced directives on my desk, not knowing whether or not I was going to wake up that next morning, it really put my caregiving experience for Richard into into perspective. It made me understand, not 100% because I couldn't be in his body and mind, but it made me understand what it was like to deal with losing some of those basic skills that we're all used to doing, and how hard it is to accept that. And that's as I continue to move forward in this advocacy role, that's an area that I want to definitely want to talk about. But I want to lighten up the conversation about bathrooming. Can I do that? Is that okay?
You want to talk about
always
poop?
For lightening the conversation.
Anytime.
We talk about poop all the time.
Poop. Well, we want to talk about
We just did a whole
poop.
episode about constipation.
Oh,
Yep.
well.
It was amazing.
And it wasn't ketchup, so that's okay. So we made a joke about it. We had a joke about our bathroom chores, and I was totally comfortable doing it, and he got comfortable going on. But again, just there's a lot of caregivers that aren't comfortable. It's okay to say no when it's appropriate. But we had a phrase, pooperama. Pooperama. So he'd be sitting in his chair, and he'd look at me, and I get that look, and he'd say, "You know what? It's time for a pooperama." And I said, "Oh, okay. Well, some days he needed help out of his chair. Some days he didn't. Some days he needed his walker. Some days he did. I always let him tell me what he needed. So we would meander down the hallway to the bathroom. We'd be laughing and joking. We'd be talking, we'd be talking about a lot of things. And then we'd get to the bathroom, and he'd be sitting there doing his business. I have to tell you, we had the most beautiful and intimate conversations that two people could have in this setting. Because how much more vulnerable can two people be at this point? And we talked about our life together. We talked about our dreams. We talked about things that we wanted to do together. We even talked about what life would be like for me without him around. I knew from those conversations, I knew everything I needed to know about his wishes when it came time. And those are what I miss. That's what I miss, is those conversations that had no boundaries. And when he died, I knew exactly what he wanted because we've had that conversation. I never had to second. Well, we always kind of, but I never had to second guess, because we had those pooperama conversations. We made it lighthearted, and because I'm just going to be really graphic here. It's hard to ask somebody to wipe your rear end.
Yep, it is.
And not everybody can do it. But everybody can make a decision whether or not they can do it before they're in a position to where they have to do it. It's better to know what your capabilities are and have those conversations. It just came natural for us. But I just kind of go back. I never fully understood the struggles of his illness until I was faced with some mortality issues.
And I think the point you bring up about your knowing what your capabilities are is well taken, because I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, when you say capabilities, you're talking about like your psychological capabilities,
like your boundaries.
That's a whole part of your
boundaries, and
right?
Yep, and not necessarily your physical capabilities. Like I can distinctly remember one son who his mother lived with him, and he was providing her care, and he did everything that she needed, including taking her to the bathroom. But the line he drew was showering, and so he did not want to. Not that he wasn't willing to shower her physically, but just that he felt like, I'm her son, And regardless of what her cognition state is at the moment, she knows that I'm still her son and she's the mother. I just want to give her that dignity of not having her son do that. And so I asked my sister to come over, or we hire a caregiver, or like they made an intention around making showering a different experience, even though he was there, you know. And I thought I was very, you know, I was proud of him for doing that. I guess that makes sense, because not everybody does.
Yeah, you're right. Because that, again, we all have boundaries and limits, and when those are forced upon us to change without really any thought about it, then it has a tendency to cause a problem.
And it's so important to find a balance for everyone's boundaries and limits and dignity, right? Mm-hmm. Because, you know, to the point of saying, okay, well, there are lots of people who are totally fine assisting with toileting and bathing, but maybe that person doesn't want to be assisted with toileting and bathing by that person, right? There has to be a mutual agreement upon that everyone feels okay with about what those healthy boundaries are. And it might be that I'm willing to do more than someone else is willing to let me do, but that's okay. I kind of have to respect that.
Yeah.
And then we have to find a way in order to meet their needs that respects that person's boundary, and it provides them with a sense of dignity and participation. And I think ultimately, like, this is why we use the term care partner, right? Because it is a good caregiving experience, as best as that can possibly be, is something that's based on a partnership meeting as much as we can the needs of both the person who is providing care and the person who is receiving care. It can't be all one-sided. Right. That's how we end up with how we end up with negative caregiving experiences and a lot of hard feelings that go around and that don't go away, right? It's about finding, okay, where can we meet, and where do we need to bring in other support or bring in extra help, but respecting the boundaries and wishes of both people involved, because it really just can't be one way or the other. It's a partnership.
It's a partnership. I like to use the analogy of a baseball team, even though I'm a hockey fan, but it works better for baseball. The most successful baseball teams have a variety of players. They don't have, you can't have a successful baseball team with all home run hitters or all defensive players or all single hitters. You need a variety of people on the team that have different talents and skills, and you need to use those to that full advantage. So, for me, if I'm creating a team and I've got family members, we could do a whole show on family baggage, but everybody has a talent or skill. It doesn't have to be exactly hands-on caregiving. It could be, you know what, I'm going to the grocery store. Can I pick up a gallon of milk, or can I get your groceries for you? Say yes. Or you've got a favorite uncle like me, and you're a great cook. Well, let them cook you a meal. Not everybody is capable of doing the hands-on caregiving, but everybody is capable of finding a place on the team that suits their abilities and comfort zone. I can't tell you how many times I've consulted with folks that they're complaining about somebody on their team not doing what they're doing, and I'm saying, well, they don't have the same skills and abilities you do. Oh, that's right. Do you have, when you go to work, do you have a variety of different people doing different jobs? Well, this is how this is. You can't impose your skills and abilities onto somebody else. You can only do what you can do, and let them, give people a role that they can excel at. Then you'll win the World Series. There's the end of my baseball analogy. So.
No, it's a good one, and I think it's appropriate because in the end, it does take a team to care for someone, whether, from like Brandy and I's perspective, the healthcare team or the family team at home, the community and neighborhood around someone. no one can actually operate in a vacuum or in a silo by themselves. We all really need folks around us to support us. And that is the way that we can achieve success, and we prevent things like burnout, right? Where someone is trying to do it all, and where we can actually genuinely support having the best quality of life for someone, whatever their either short-term or long-term care situation may be.
Right. Spot on target.
Well, Chris, you're a delight.
Well, I like having younger sisters. And I have 2 here, so that's good.
Thank you so much for being on this episode of Care Lab. Are there anything else that you want to say? Any parting words of wisdom that you want to share with our audience? And I think one of the interesting things about Care Lab is we have listeners who are caregivers. We also have listeners who are healthcare providers. So I think you can kind of talk to whatever audience you want to. Any parting words? Just put you on the spot.
Thanks for being a caregiver, and access all our wonderful resources on the Whole Care Network.
Yeah, and there are a ton of wonderful resources at Whole Care Network. There are a lot of great podcasts for you to listen to. Of course, there is Whole Care Network streaming radio, which you can download the Whole Care Network streaming radio app for free, and where hopefully you are listening to Care Lab right now. And of course, there's also WCN University, where you can find access to care experts. You can take courses, or you can join the Village to access live events, are some of our most popular courses, and our private discussion forums. So whatever you need, come check it out.
And you can get awesome resources like at Ask Sammy.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely. And we're all there.
This is a collaborative effort. It's not a silo. We're so thrilled to have you as a collaborator on the Whole Care Network and sharing your wisdom and expertise, because there's not one person that can do it all.
That's right. Thanks for joining us, Chris.
Thank you. This is fun.
Yes,
congratulations on your show, and continued success.
Thank you so much. If you are a Care Lab listener, and maybe if this is your first time tuning in and you like the show, please make sure that you are subscribing to the podcast so that you get updates on when the next show drops. If you're already a subscriber, please make sure that you're liking it and share it with someone who maybe would benefit from the information or the show, or someone who maybe you just want to put a smile on their face for the day. Thank you so much for listening. Till next time, we will see you back here on Care Lab. Bye.
Bye.
This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story, one podcast at a time. Content presented in the following podcast is for information purposes only. Views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the host and guest, and may not represent the views and opinions of the Whole Care Network. Always consult with your physician for any medical advice, and always consult with your attorney for any legal advice. And thank you for listening to the Whole Care Network.